Today, we're going to dig into the powerful, life-saving rules that act as a shield around India's most hazardous industries. This is really a story about how a nation, in the wake of an absolutely unthinkable disaster, was forced to build a new set of defenses, hoping it would never happen again.
I mean, really think about that. It's a serious question with incredibly high stakes. How do you make sure that a place handling incredibly dangerous stuff operates safely day in and day out? How do you protect the workers, and just as importantly, the entire community living right outside the gates?
You see, for India, the answer to that question changed, well, forever, in one single night in December 1984. Bhopal. Before then, the laws just weren't built for the scale of these massive, modern chemical industries. The catastrophe in Bhopal was a brutal, horrifying wake-up call that showed just how massive the gaps were and forced a complete, top-to-bottom reinvention of the country's approach to safety.
So let's start there. In the immediate aftermath, how did this one tragedy directly reshape Indian law?
The scale of what happened in Bhopal is almost impossible to wrap your head around. The leak of methyl isocyanate gas, it resulted in the immediate deaths of thousands of people. But the horror didn't stop when the gas cleared. It left hundreds of thousands more with devastating lifelong health problems. It's a scar that is never truly healed.
What happened next was a rapid-fire legislative response. The '84 tragedy was the grim catalyst. Just 2 years later, boom, the Environment Act is passed, creating a whole new legal umbrella. By '87, the Old Factories Act was given some serious new teeth, and then in '89, we get the cornerstone rules we're really going to focus on today. This wasn't just about patching a few holes, this was about building an entirely new system from the ground up.
And that new system, you can really think of it as a multi-layered safety shield. It's built from all these interconnected laws and regulations, and they're all designed to work together to prevent another disaster.
See, it's not just one single law, it's a whole framework. You've got the Environment Act, which gives the government broad powers. The Factories Act zeroes in on workplace safety. The MSIHC rules, well, they're the real heart of controlling chemical hazards. And the EPPR rules, they lay out a clear plan for what to do in an emergency. Altogether, they form India's comprehensive answer to the question, how do we stop another Bhopal?
So, who exactly does this shield protect against? The regulations focus on something called a Major Accident Hazard Unit, or an MAH unit. And listen, this isn't just any factory. An MAH unit is a facility that handles dangerous chemicals above a certain amount. Once you cross that line, you are automatically subject to the absolute highest level of safety scrutiny.
So, what does that highest level of scrutiny actually look like? Let's open up the rulebook for these high-risk places and see what's inside.
Okay, first up is a really key legal concept, the occupier. The law is crystal clear on this. The responsibility for safety doesn't just float around in some vague corporate entity. No, it rests with a specific person, the individual who has ultimate control of the facility. This is so critical because it pins accountability directly to a human being, not just a company logo. The buck stops with them.
And if an emergency does happen, the response structure is also laid out with military precision. It's a 4-tier system, a clear chain of command. You've got the local group for immediate on-site help, then the district group to manage everything happening outside the factory gates, and it scales all the way up to the state and national levels for the big picture coordination. It's designed so that in the middle of chaos, everyone knows exactly what their job is.
Okay, so that's the structure. That's the law on paper. Now for the important part. How does all this translate into concrete, real-world actions on the ground?
Well, this rulebook isn't just a bunch of abstract ideas. It's a very specific mandatory checklist. First, if you're an MAH unit, you have to raise your hand and notify all the authorities. Then, you have to create a massive safety report. Basically, a blueprint of every single thing that could possibly go wrong and what you've done to stop it. Then come the regular safety audits to make sure you're actually doing what you say you're doing. And finally, you have to have detailed emergency plans ready to go at a moment's notice.
And about those emergency plans, there are actually two totally separate kinds. The occupier, that person in charge, is responsible for the on-site plan. That's for managing any emergency inside the factory walls. But, and this is crucial, the local district authority is responsible for creating the off-site plan. That's the playbook for protecting the public and the environment if an accident escapes the facility's boundaries. This division of labor is absolutely key.
So what kind of places are we even talking about here? Let's make this real. We're not talking about small workshops.
We're talking about massive oil refineries and petrochemical complexes, huge fertilizer and pesticide plants, gas bottling facilities, even major pharmaceutical manufacturers. These are the engines of the economy, and every single one falls under these strict MAH rules.
And just how many of these facilities are we talking about? The scale is pretty significant. Across India, there are roughly 1,861 designated major accident hazard units. Think about that. That's almost 2,000 places that by law are handling enough hazardous material to cause a major disaster if something goes terribly wrong.
So, the safety shield exists. It's on the books, it's comprehensive, it's robust, but the real question, the tough question, is, does it always work? Let's take a look at the cracks in that shield.
Because the hard truth is, even with this incredible framework, terrible accidents still happen. Incidents like the massive fire at the Jaipur oil depot in 2009, or the tragic styrene gas leak in Vizag in 2020. They're these stark, painful reminders that just having rules written down is no guarantee of safety. A framework is only as strong as the people who implement it.
And that really gets to the heart of the challenge, doesn't it? It's the human element. The success of this entire system, this entire shield, depends on people, on rigorous implementation, on continuous monitoring, on strict enforcement. But maybe most of all, it requires a proactive safety culture, where preventing an accident is the #1 priority for everyone, every single day, no exceptions.
Which leaves us with this final lingering thought. Out of the ashes of its worst industrial disaster, India built one of the most comprehensive safety frameworks in the world. The rules are there, the structure is there. But is a rulebook, no matter how perfectly it's written, ever truly enough to stop the next one? That's a question worth thinking about.